Technology is a strange enabler. For people with access, it's a powerful tool that makes life simpler, faster, and cost efficient.
Well, technology has been always the primer of change, whether rural area, urban area, whether it is industry, whether it is agriculture, whether it is environment, or whether it's climate change. Technological roots are very strong. In fact, the rich-poor divide started after the Industrial Revolution in Europe between technology haves and technology have-nots.
It is this disparity that results in the uneven distribution of technology benefits for developing nations like India. Today, we struggle to use technology to solve basic problems like economic prosperity, empowerment, and social change. And when the population in question is 700 million, spread over 630,000 villages, the gap commonly known as the digital divide looks very wide indeed. This is where Information and Communication Technologies, or ICT, comes in. It brings technologies like the internet to the doorstep of the poor in rural and urban areas. It aims to give every citizen, irrespective of their social background or the language they speak, an access to technology to empower and aid them in their respective occupations.
If you count the ICT initiatives, particularly for bridging the digital divide or taking technology to rural areas, I would say there are about 30-40 projects. And probably about 10,000 villages have some kind of computing there, either connected with the internet or local kiosks.
If you look at the kind of divides that exist, for example, in our society, one is distance, in the city versus the remote rural area, which lacks everything that you can think of. And the quickest way of bridging that is ICT. The fact that distance doesn't matter, as they say, geography is history. Geography is gone now, thanks to communication technologies. And so you're able to bridge that divide. If you look at the divide between the literate and the illiterate, again, new ICTs, particularly things like text-to-speech systems, where I can access something, it's on text in the screen, automatically convert it to voice, I can put on headphones and hear what's happening. Things like this, which are able to come across some of these divides in our country, to me is what ICT can do.
We looked at the devices in the market at that time, and we found that PCs, laptops, they were all built for different markets for a different purpose, and people were trying to import them into this country and trying to force fit technology which is not meant for local use. So we said we need to define what is the right technology for where we are, and result of this thinking and exploring and researching is what the computer was.
One such initiative is being implemented in the state of Chhattisgarh. They distributed 900 computers in 11 panchayats or block-level village centers. They contain data on most government schemes for villagers. These are then communicated by the sarpanch or village head to all villagers. The computer is also used for data collection. So typically, a sarpanch will collect details on population, land holdings, crop details, as well as village requirements on the computer and send this data online to the relevant government department.
So, computer has the potential to be connected to our state wide area network. So, with the help of our SWAN, which will provide a backbone, using computer, all these sarpanch will get connected to the government.
इसका जब आपको ट्रेनिंग वगैरह दिया तो कितना समय लगा आपको सीखने में?
ट्रेनिंग के लिए तो 2 बार दिया था, लेकिन पहले बार में ही समझ आ गया।
तो कितने घंटे तक आप बैठे थे सीखने के लिए?
सीखने के लिए तो 1.5 घंटा मात्र बैठे थे। 1.5 घंटा में पूरे सीख गए।
अच्छा, तो इसमें जो आप एंट्री करते हैं उसका फ़ायदा क्या है एंट्री करने का? मतलब इन द सेंस मेरा मतलब ये है कि आपको आसान पड़ता है ये, या फिर आपको कंप्यूटर
हाँ,
आसान पड़ता
आसान
है?
पड़ता है क्योंकि ये कंप्यूटर का तो छोटा रूप है ही, एक बटन दबाओ तो पूरी फाइल निकल जाती है। यदि हम अलमारी में फ़ाइल रखते हैं तो वो फाइल निकालने में अलमारी खोलेंगे, फिर फाइल खोलेंगे, फिर एक एक पत्ता पलटाते रहेंगे, तो वो हमको पत्ता पलटाना नहीं पड़ता और कम समय लगता है। एक बटन दबाएंगे सारी फाइल सामने आ जाती है, तो ये हमको समय की बचत कराती है।
The fact that they're able to take some technology which is new and they're able to use it and benefit from it gives them so much self-confidence. So the ability to come back after using a technology, that confidence, I think is better than anything else you can give.
India first looked at ICT in the early 90s, but at that time, the challenge was not just cost, but an effective telecommunication infrastructure that would allow the spread of information.
This is as way back as 1994. India had only about 7 to 8 million telephones in the country and was expanding only about 1 million telephone per year. It was at this point we were started looking at how do you really get telecom moving in the country and get to something like 100 million telephones in next 8 to 10 years. And we actually saw that there was tremendous disconnect between what the cost for installing a telephone line is and what kind of revenue that an operator can get. And we saw that, looked at each component of the telecom network, and we saw while many other part of the telecom network the cost trend was in decline, the local loop, which is from the exchange to the home, a pair of copper wires, that was the dominant cost and that was not going down. And it is that which we therefore started focusing on and saying what can be done. And that's a time we looked at wireless, because people did not think that it can be built in less than 30,000 rupees. We said we will build it under 10,000 rupees. Tower, the base stations, the connectivity, the front end switching and the subscriber unit. Each of these things had to be built. Appropriate antennas had to be built. So we started working on each and everything. For example, antenna till that time used to cost $20. We got a local party in Chennai, we designed the antenna and got them to build it at less than 100 rupees.
The result was the codec wireless in local loop that is today capable of high-speed data transfer and costs just 7,000 rupees for the entire equipment. But it still had a long way to go to penetrate most of rural India. That's when the brains at IIT Chennai pioneered an entrepreneur-driven business model. It provided technology services in rural areas for a small fee. These are what typical internet kiosks look like. There's also this innovative medical diagnostic kit priced at just $300. It has given a giant boost to telemedicine efforts, connecting doctors from large cities to remote villages over a video conferencing link. However, the most demanded service is basic computer education like Windows, Word, Excel, and painting.
To me, the most exciting thing is what it can do for empowerment. The fact that somebody sitting in a village somewhere, a remote village, can access information about what schemes the government has, not just to benefit from them, but what is being used or spent in his or her name, what schemes are being put in place, and then to ask questions about them. So if one of the plans is making a road into the village, the villagers are able to ask, hey, when did this start? How much money was spent? Why isn't it finished yet? Or frankly, in many parts of India, where is that road you claim to have built, which was never built but the money was stolen for it? These questions, I think, strikes me that they really bring meaning to democracy, because what they do is, instead of democracy being electoral democracy where you vote once in 5 years or whatever, you're now able to participate, which is what democracy is all about, in the process of decision making and to shape decisions. This is what ICT can do.
இந்த பிஸ்னஸ் பண்ணுறதுனால எனக்கும் திருப்தியாக இருக்குது, மற்ற பிள்ளைங்களுக்கும் ரொம்ப திருப்திகரமாக இருந்து ஒரு ஜாப் ட்ரை பண்ணிக்கிறாங்க. இப்போ எங்கள் இன்சார்ஜில் நிறைய ஜாப்லாம் நாங்கள் தேடி கொடுத்துருக்கோம். மந்த்லி நான் 12,000 ஏர்ன் பண்ணுறதுனால என்னுடைய ஃபேமிலியை மெயின்டைன் பண்ணுறதா இருக்குது. எனக்கு வேணுன்றப்ப ஹஸ்பண்டுக்கிட்ட நான் கேட்க வேண்டியதில்லை. நானே எனக்கு தேவையானதெல்லாம் வாங்கிக்கலாம், பிள்ளைங்களுக்கு வாங்கிக்கலாம், ஃபேமிலியை மெயின்டைன் பண்ணுற அளவுக்கு எனக்கு இருக்குது. அவங்களும் வந்து எனக்கு ஃபுல் சப்போர்ட்டிங் இருக்கிறதுனால தான் நான் இந்த அளவுக்கு பண்ண முடியுது.
We have ensured that all our village knowledge centers function on the first fundamental basic principle of social inclusion in access to knowledge, access to technology. And that has been one of the great strong points of this movement.
This bottom-up model was used by the MS Swaminathan Research Foundation, or MSSRF, to establish the National Virtual Academy. Here, all information is collated, translated into Tamil, the local language, and transmitted to various village knowledge centers spread throughout Pondicherry.
Hello? சொல்லுங்க மேடம். இந்த பசுவுக்கு வந்து உடம்பு சரியில்லை, இந்த ஜுரத்தோடு இருந்தது மேடம். அந்த டாக்டர்கிட்ட போயிட்டு காமிச்சோம். அவங்க வந்து பார்த்துட்டு மாத்திரை கொடுத்தாங்க, அப்புறம் ஊசி 2 போட்டாங்க.
Take this touchscreen machine at a knowledge center in Ambalam called the Livestock Guru. It's an electronic guide on animal husbandry. The villagers can simply walk in and receive information on breeding, animal feed, and disease prevention. Here again, a simple animated video and local language audio have been used as the teaching mechanism to a largely uneducated population.
Now, for example, fisheries people now, small fishermen, catamaran, those who are going catamaran, they now carry a cell phone with GPS data, which shows them where the fish are. They can go, because our last mile and last person connectivity is through internet and community radio or the internet and cell phone.
Such information is changing the lives of villagers, especially the fishermen in Veerampattinam village. The volunteers at MSSRF use a US Navy website to download information on ocean wave height, intensity, and wind direction. This information is passed on to the village knowledge center through a loudspeaker as the fishermen ready themselves for another fishing day.
என் பேர் சேது மாதவன். 15 வருஷமாக இந்த தொழில் பண்ணிட்டுருக்கேன். சொந்த ஊர் வீராம்பட்டினம். இந்த தொழில் வந்து முன்னாடி வந்து கட்டு மரத்தை வச்சு தான் தொழில் பண்ணோம். இதன் பிறகு ஃபயர் போர்டு வந்துடுச்சு. அதுக்கு முன்னாடி வந்து நாங்கள் கண்மூடித்தனமாக தான் தொழில் பண்ணிட்டு இருந்தோம். இப்போ அலை எவ்வளோ தூரத்தில் எவ்வளோ ஸ்பீடாக வரும் தெரியாது, காற்று எவ்வளோ ஸ்பீடாக அடிக்கும் தெரியாது. ஒரு அனுபவத்தை வச்சே பண்ணிகிட்டு இருந்தோம். இப்போ MS சுவாமிநாதன் ஃபவுண்டேஷன் இப்போ வந்த பிறகு அவங்க வந்து அலை எவ்வளோ ஹைட்டில் அடிக்கும், எவ்வளோ ஸ்பீடில் காற்று அடிக்கும் அதெல்லாம் சொல்லுவாங்க. இன்றைக்கி நடக்க போகிறது இல்லை நாளைக்கு நடக்க போகிறது சொல்லுவாங்க. அதை வச்சு நாங்கள் வந்து தொழில் பண்ணுறது கொஞ்சம் ஈஸியாக இருக்குது.
Similar methods are also used to provide basic computer education to children whose enthusiasm has exceeded the expectations of the foundation.
நான் டாக்டர் ராதாகிருஷ்ணன் ஸ்கூல் இங்கிலீஷ் மிடில் ஸ்கூல்லேருந்து வரேன். என் ஃப்ரெண்டு சீனிவாசன் கூட அன்னாடிக்கு சென்டருக்கு வரேன். இங்கே வந்து பவர் பாயிண்ட், டிராயிங், மியூசிக் எல்லாத்தையும் இங்கே தான் வந்து கற்றுக்கிட்டேன். என் ஆசை போலீஸ் ஆகணுன்ட்டு ஆசை. திருடன்லாம் பிடிக்கணும், கள்ள கடத்தல் பிடிக்கிறவங்களாம் பிடிக்கணும், மக்களுக்கு நல்லது செய்யணும், இந்த ஊரை முன்னேற வைக்கணும், இந்த நாட்டை முன்னேற வைக்கணும். போலீஸை பார்த்தா எல்லாம் திருடன்லாம் ஸ்ட்ரிக்டாக இருக்கணும்.
Technology has also brought in with it a sense of empowerment and togetherness for everyone, especially women. It has broken through social barriers, allowing them to look beyond their traditional roles.
முன்னால் வந்து கம்ப்யூட்டர்னா வந்து என்னன்னே தெரியாது. இப்போ இங்கே வந்த பிறகு தான் எனக்கு வந்து ஃபஸ்ட்டு அனுபவம். நான் ஒரு 1 மந்தில் நான் வந்து இதெல்லாம் கற்றுக்கிட்டேன். இந்த கம்ப்யூட்டர்லாம் கற்றுட்டு இன்டர்நெட் பார்க்கறதுக்கு நான் வந்து பசங்களுக்கு சொல்லி கொடுக்குற அளவுக்கு நான் வந்து ஒரு மாதம் ட்ரைனிங் எடுத்துக்கினேன். அந்த ஒரு மாதத்துக்கு அப்புறம் எனக்கு வந்து அதெல்லாம் தெரிஞ்சுது.
ITC Limited, one of India's foremost private sector companies, has been procuring farm produce extensively for its packaged foods and confectionery business. But in the mid-90s, their international business division identified some major problems in the procurement process.
There are primarily two different kinds of problems that one had in commodity business. See, all of us had to go to mandis to buy because there was the traditional APMC Act, as it was called, Agriculture Produce Marketing Act, where to protect the farmers in the mid-60s, a law was made saying that you must really operate within mandis, the auction yards where the produce is sold. So as a result, what was happening is that from a village, they were bringing to a market yard, and as agribusiness, we were going to market yard to buy. So produce was really moving from A to B and then B to C. So as a result, the total transaction costs were getting high. So to be competitive, obviously cost is one key issue.
On the other hand, the farmers were dealing with a very inefficient mandi system. There was a lack of professional competition in fixing the price. The inspection process was unscientific, and the farmers had to bear the costs of transportation, bagging, weighing, and agent commissions. This led to large-scale exploitation of farmers. By the late 90s, ITC had identified a new business model. It was called E-Chopal, where Chopal simply means a gathering place. This place was an internet kiosk in every village. The company identified a local villager to act as Sanchalak or coordinator. The first benefit to farmers is access to grain prices at all local mandis as well as ITC's offer price. This empowers them to get the best price available for their produce. To make a sale, farmers could now transport their produce to the nearest ITC procurement center called Chopal Sagar. A sample of the grain is collected and tested for quality by a lab technician in the presence of the farmer. A price is fixed and the grain is purchased.
ऐसा नहीं है, नाच पानी यहाँ घटने हटने कोई जवाबदारी नहीं, जरा भी नहीं, एक दानों भी इधर से इधर नहीं होगा।
और आपने कभी देखा वो कैसे अंदर करते हैं?
नहीं देखा नहीं, यहाँ एक दो काशकार होने ज़्यादा फिर बात करने लगे, फिर उन्हें तुरंत काटा है, तोलियो नहीं, फिर उससे हमारा सामने तोलवा बताई, कंप्यूटर कांटो है, ऐसे फिर अलग भी मल्ली होने चढ़ा के तुरंत वही काशकार का सामने तुलवाए, इतना भी 1 इंची का फर्क नहीं मिला।
आपकी कौशल्या बहन चौपाल रेडियो में आपका स्वागत करती है। हम ये जानना चाहते हैं कि क्या डॉलर चने का दाम बढ़ने की उम्मीद है या नहीं, कृपया बताएं।
सबसे पहले तो आपको बधाई कि आप ये कार्यक्रम परिवार के साथ सुनते हैं। जहां तक डॉलर चने के दामों का सवाल है, ये मार्केटिंग टीम आपको जवाब देगी। हमने बात उन तक पहुंचाई।
The benefits go beyond just a good sale for farmers. The E-Chopal also educates them on better farm practices.
किनारा है, किनारे का लगभग 1-2 मीटर छोड़ दें, उससे हमको नमूना नहीं लेना है। और दूसरा ये हमें ध्यान रखना है कि जैसे कई जगह खेत में आके लोग बोरा पटक देते हैं खाद का, तो जिन जगहों पे बोरा पटका गया है उन जगहों से मिट्टी का नमूना न लें।
पूरे गांव के अंदर माइक से ऐलान करवाया कि यहाँ चौपाल के द्वारा एक कंप्यूटर रखा गया है और उस कंप्यूटर के द्वारा आपको खेती संबंधी समस्त जानकारियाँ प्राप्त होगी, आप लोग आइए। तो धीरे धीरे किसान, पहले 2-3 किसान आए, उन्होंने देखा, फिर उन्होंने गांव में चर्चा की, उसके बाद फिर धीरे धीरे किसान बढ़ते गए और फिर ये हुआ कि 15-20 किसान डेली जो है वो आते गए। हम उनको जो है वो फिर कंप्यूटर खोल के पूरी मौसम की जानकारी, भाव की जानकारी, अन्य जानकारियाँ, सोयाबीन की फसल की, दवा की, इनकी सब जानकारियाँ हम उनको बताते रहे, तो किसानों का जो था वो फिर इधर रुझान काफ़ी बढ़ा।
The success of E-Chopal has reduced procurement costs for ITC, given it much better control over the quality of its raw material, and the entire expense on infrastructure has paid for itself in 4 years.
तो आप देखे देख सभी यहीं आएगा, जहाँ सुविधा अच्छी होगी भी यहीं आएगा ना। मंडी में तो अभी तुम देखो कि अभी तो लीलाम से नहीं निपटा हो, और कई ट्राली रह जाए तो कल तक पड़ा रहो, कल भी रहेगा परसों तक पड़ा रहो, और यहाँ हम आप निपट का सट से हमारा घर में मुकाम, कोई आपत्ति नहीं।
यहाँ बच्चे कभी कंप्यूटर सीखने आते हैं, हम उनको फ्री में सिखाते हैं। सीहोर में जाएंगे तो वहाँ उनको पैसे लगते हैं। अगर कोई बच्चा सीखना चाहता है तो हम कहते हैं बैठो सीखो, सीखते हैं बच्चे आके यहाँ पर कंप्यूटर को, उनके रिजल्ट्स आते हैं तो यहाँ हम फ्री में रिजल्ट्स उनको दे देते हैं निकाल के। सीहोर में जाते हैं तो एक रिजल्ट के उनको 25 रुपये देना पड़ते हैं। नहीं, भरोसा तो हुआ, क्योंकि आज का युग जो है वो टेक्निकल युग है, इसलिए भरोसा तो उसमें हो गया था कि ऐसा हो सकता है।
India has leapfrogged in the last 2 years in terms of creating the infrastructure necessary for a knowledge revolution. Now, content creation and capacity building, these are two very important ones.
Cost, however, plays a major part in scaling up initiatives. Today, there are barely 2 or 3 initiatives that fulfill their goals out of the 40 odd at present.
I do see that you're going to see a lot more of these happening, but today we are definitely underinvested, if I may put it that way, in IT in the country, and there is need to bring in much more investment both from the government and the private sector. Fortunately, the financial viability of some of these is getting better, so you can begin to see that you can do much more, and there is a lot of pump priming by putting in money, as I said, from the government.
And yet, a huge chunk of this population still does not have proper access to basic infrastructure like education, roads, drinking water and electricity. So, could the investments in ICT be better utilized to provide primary services that improve standards of living?
I had a number of projects that have been very successful, a number of initiatives that have done well, and the big challenge looking ahead now is how do you take all these small sparks, if I may say so, and convert them into a prairie fire? How do you take these interesting things done here, there, and take them around the country? I think that's the big challenge facing us today. The capabilities are there, the need is there, there's proven expertise and proven success. Just the question is how do you scale up and multiply it so that you create an impact on a bigger scale?
I'm pretty optimistic that in a 10-year time frame, if you were to ask me in a 2-year time frame, I don't think many things might happen. But in a 10-year time frame, I think, and also all this demand that is latent today, that's the one difference between urban and rural areas. Most of this demand is latent. You need to catalyze it. You need to let people see that, and 10 years is sufficient time for that to get catalyzed.
Experts agree that in the next 10 years, ICT will play a major role in bridging the wide gap between haves and have-nots. Not only will this have a clear effect on livelihood, healthcare, education, and a sense of empowerment in villages, it will also address other worrisome areas like migration and the dependence on agriculture.
I would like to see ICT as being almost invisible. So it's not the big thing up there, but it's the invisible one. It's so ubiquitous, it's so commonly used in everything you do that you don't even think about it. That would be the idea, that you use it for a million things, but it doesn't even strike you that you're using it.